Okay. Start.
Yeah.
Here we have model Heather. Her hair is very long, relaxed to the right degree, good condition, and in every respect workable. Having checked the hair through, we've decided to adopt a basic wedge style. Here we've moistened the hair to get an indication of the degree of relaxation. Having decided upon a wedge, we need to emphasize movement just beyond the ear and nape area. Here we check for the hair's ability to move. Having decided upon all those things, we start a wedge by first taking a section onto the face, combing the hair down onto the skin, and elevating upwards. Here we've decided upon our guideline. Using the ear lobe as a guide, we prepare a guideline. We continue this by taking our next section parallel to our first, elevating downwards, and then we cut. Here we identify our guideline. Here we keep our fingers onto the skin, and we cut with an upward elevation. Always checking for precision here. We continue again, taking sections right throughout. We direct every mesh downwards over to our first guideline area and cut. And we continue doing this. Whilst cutting, we keep our fingers onto the skin, gradually lifting up our angle to achieve heavy graduations, which will be quite evident when you comb the hairs blown dried and brushed backwards. You can almost see the graduation as we build up our here we are again, combing the sections down over to our first section, and cutting, almost elevating upwards. This is a bit different a while actually. Okay, that doesn't matter. Having completed our side section as far as up to our parting, we prepare our side section by blending in the side with the back. We've identified our ear to ear section, and that should give us our guideline for the sides. Fingers pointing almost into the nape area and keeping our fingers onto the skin. We over direct, almost working towards the face. We prepare our guideline area. Here we are, over directing, almost working on back into the face and keeping fingers onto the skin firmly. We apply a little tension onto the model's hair. As you'll notice, it has a tendency to frizz. That is due to the 50-degree relaxation. Take our next section, almost working into our forehead to nape section. We identify our guideline area, combing the hair almost over directing on towards the face, and we cut. Still applying slight pressure in that section. In front with a wedge, every section is brought down over a previous section. So we're almost elevating, we're working in almost an elevating manner, building up to give us our graduation. Here you can almost feel the graduation being built up now. And we continue taking sections, using our recession area sections as a guideline. For our back sections. Here we're blending in the front with the back, and we'll continue taking sections until we reach the middle section, which is our forehead to nape section. Here we are identifying our guideline area again. In most cases where you can't actually accommodate that entire mesh within your fingers or within your grasp, you almost divide that section into half, and we cut our that first half of that section, and then we move to the next portion to complete that section. And we continue doing this right the way through to, as I said, our forehead to nape section. And everything is brought down over to our first guideline. Here we are checking through those unwanted hair for precision. And in fact, you'll find with a wedge, everything is really quite repetitive. Having achieved a guideline, we simply bring every section to meet our guideline area, and we build up or we elevate upon that section or upon that guideline. And as we continue cutting, we're almost building up section over section over section until we reach that final, either your parted section or your forehead to nape section. Here we are, still applying a little pressure onto the hair, as the hair isn't entirely straightened to 100-degree straightness. We've actually relaxed that hair 50-degree to allow us bounce, to allow us movement, and to allow us greater elasticity with the hair. You'll find with Afro hair type or with relaxed hair type, it's never wise to over straighten the hair, as you lose quite a lot of movement. So in fact, it's wise perhaps to just relax the hair to the right degree, thus leaving in the hair a certain amount of its own elasticity, which in fact aids us in styling, blow drying, combing for that final result. Here we can identify, almost pick out quite clearly our graduated areas. Here we are checking through for precision. And as we continue to take section over section, we achieve our wedged effect. Here we've reached almost our forehead to nape section. That section is in fact slightly higher when compared to our parting. In fact, the parting finishes just above our recession area. Here we are again. We're working downwards, or we're directing our sections downwards. We've parted that entire section into half, thus, as we've previously identified, making our grasp a lot easier for that cut. With a bit of tension, working onto the skin, keeping your fingers onto the skin at all times. That ensures precision. That ensures that we're graduating at all times. And here we are with the final section. In fact, here we've actually chose to part that section again, perhaps almost in 3. Fingers onto the skin, and we continue cutting. And we complete that section at the nape Here we are, an almost perfect wedged effect with graduations clearly visible. Here we are checking through those graduated areas. You'll find the hair keeps bouncing back towards you. In fact, that's a healthy thing because we haven't over-processed the hair. What's interesting, in fact, when the hair is blown dried, you'll quite clearly identify its ability to almost blown dry itself. It's very, very straight. And here's a perfect line working through from parting or recession area right into nape. And you can almost feel the movement now as we brush the hair backwards with our fingers to identify the movement and the graduation. We've gone to the other side of the cut. I have identified our ear-to-ear section, and here we prepare our guideline. Comb hair onto the face. We're using again the earlobe as a guide, and the comb to stabilize the hair. As we've identified, the hair hasn't been straightened very straight. It's very bouncy. Tends to jump back towards you. And here's a guideline area now. We prepare our next section. Here we can clearly see our guideline, and we cut with the comb firmly holding down our section. As I said, the hair hasn't been relaxed very straight, and we deliberately straighten the hair 50 degrees to allow us bounce, to allow us movement, and still maintaining a tremendous amount of elasticity in the hair. The hair appears to be stubborn, but it isn't. Hence we're using clips to keep it in place. And we're directing all the sections downwards. Fingers onto the skin. And we continue cutting. Here you can feel the hair always wanting to jump back towards you. In fact, it's perhaps a good thing because you can clearly identify the graduations when it jumps back out towards you. And as before, we continue cutting exactly in the same manner. Direct our sections downwards. We keep our fingers onto the skin so as to encourage the graduation, and we cut. So every mesh is brought down. To meet the other section. Here we are, clearly seeing our guideline area. And that will continue to do right the way to our parting. It's in fact quite interesting. This particular hair type is behaves quite peculiarly. In fact, it appears very frizzy and almost with a stubborn kind of pattern, and once blown dried you'll find it's completely straight. This is where your skills are perhaps necessary in identifying, when relaxing, how much or what degree one needs to relax the hair to achieve a good result when cutting a particular style. This hair type, in fact, when straightened too much, you'll find it responds without any movement. And we continue taking sections right towards the crown, combing our sections downwards. We notice the hair is looking very glossy and very conditioned. We always use a little gel on the hair, which makes cutting so much easier. And in fact, whilst we're cutting, it's conditioning. You can almost feel the shape taking place now. Here we freehand that final section. We come our head backwards just to identify our graduations and the hair's ability to move. So having completed the front section and we're happy with its movement and the required length, we move to the back by sectioning off our first section like before, and we section off another section at the front. As a guideline, and we blend in those two sections together. So in fact we're using the front as a guideline really, and we, as previously, over directing onto the face, we almost working onto the face. Here we are directing the hair back onto the face. Scissors almost pointing towards the nape area. We've actually sectioned off that main section into two portions as to get a better grasp. And here we are completing that final section. Try not to accommodate the entire mesh into one cut. One could quite simply subdivide your section here we are. We've prepared our section, and then here we are dividing that section into half, again making our grasp so much easier. Directing our sections towards the face, but working towards the nape area. See, it's pointed almost towards the nape area. Here we take our next section. You can see the hair wanting to jump back towards its original position. As I said before, that identifies the elasticity left in the hair during our relaxing process. And we continue to do this to our parting and forehead to nape section. Here again we prepare our next section. And then we subdivide that section into 2 or into 3 in some cases. And we apply a little tension, directing the hair onto the face, and we cut. In spite of the hair's tendency to want to jump back to its original section, it's quite manageable, because you could quite clearly feel the cut developing as we continue cutting, and our graduations are noticeable here. And again, in spite of its frizziness, it retains moisture very well. So that clearly indicates that the hair is indeed very healthy and not over-processed.
Hello? Yes, it is. It's Wayne speaking. Can you just change phones for a minute, please? I just want to change phones, alright? I'm just going to change the phone. Do you want to roll back?
No, that's alright. You could hear, couldn't you?
Oh.
Here we are again. Bringing the sections onto the face, and we're cutting. Clearly, our subdivided section was quite obvious, and here we are taking that final section, applying little tension onto the hair for the cut. Here's our little stubborn section in the back there, and we continue to cut that. And the shape is clearly building up as we elevate. Here we have our final section. Here we could clearly see our forehead to nape section. Clips in position so as to prevent the hair from jumping back towards you. We've also subdivided that section again, working onto the face. Here's a tension on that section there, and we're completing our last section with one grasp now. Here it's clearly we can see our forehead to nape section. Here we have a completed side, graduations running through from front to back. Here we are cleaning up our baseline or our guideline. Here we have a completed perimeter, sides completed, although we haven't completed the back yet. I think we in fact need to almost blown dry the hair to complete the back. We've blown dried the hair, as the hair being rather elastic. We've decided to blow dry the hair and check the back dry, which gives us greater precision, especially when dealing with this type of hair. Now, you can quite clearly see the difference in the hair. In fact, during the cut, it was very stubborn, very elastic, very frizzy. As I said, once blown dried, you get a completely manageable texture. In fact, a very workable texture. So here we have our perimeter shape completely finished. Graduations are very, very obvious indeed. Here we're cleaning up our guideline area for precision. And every section is brought down, elevated downwards. Here we are tidying up our nape area section. So in fact, if we are going to finish the cut dry, we need to check through our perimeter, our design line, for definition. So in fact, it's quite important to consider if we're dealing with relatively stubborn hair type or somewhat frizzy hair type. During the cut, we can in fact, on completion, blow dry the cut and practically finish off or check through our guidelines. Here we are, completed perimeter, graduations quite heavily, in fact, our wedged areas, it's quite obvious. Hair is very healthy and in very good condition. Here we are checking through our lines. Here we have a perfect line working from front to back. You can pick up the wedge below there. So as we said, once the hair is relaxed to the right degree, it behaves perfectly. What's important to remember, never over-process the hair. So we're almost relaxing the hair, bearing in mind the finished cut. In this particular case, we chose the wedge for this type of hair in relation to how it behaves. In fact, for Afro hair type that lacks movement and bounce, the wedge is in fact a style suitable for Afro hair. It's very healthy, it moves and still falls back into its original shape. So here we have model Heather, very happy with her new style. She did indicate to us that her hair was far too long. It lacked movement, it lacked control, it was very stubborn, especially when washed. And in fact, in most cases, Heather could almost wash her hair with this particular cut and allow it to dry. It would perhaps behave like a perm. Here we have almost a day wear kind of finish. Just blown dried straight for style. Here we are, bouncing. Very manageable.